Antarctica has long been regarded as one of the most unforgiving places on the entire planet, and for centuries it was assumed that flowering plants had no place there whatsoever. The continent is defined by three major barriers to life: temperatures that plunge well below freezing, water that exists almost entirely as ice, and a geographic isolation so complete that new species rarely make their way through naturally. Despite all these obstacles, Antarctica is home to exactly two native species of flowering plants that have managed to survive conditions that would destroy virtually any other flowering plant on Earth. However, as global temperatures continue rising due to climate change, the conditions that once made Antarctica so hostile are slowly being altered, and scientists are now documenting the plant growth in areas where it was previously considered completely impossible. The interior of Antarctica, known as continental Antarctica, is what most people picture: crushing sub zero temperatures year round, creating an environment so extreme that almost nothing can survive. The only life forms capable of existing there are highly specialized lichens and birophytes, representing only a tiny fraction of the biodiversity found anywhere else on Earth. Maritime Antarctica, however, located near the Antarctic Peninsula, is an entirely different story. Its proximity to the ocean moderates temperatures and creates a comparatively hospitable environment where meaningful plant life can emerge. The difference in biodiversity between the two regions is staggering. While continental Antarctica supports almost nothing, maritime Antarctica hosts over 500 species of lichen, mosses, and liverworts. As warming continues, making the region more accessible, scientists have identified the Antarctic Peninsula as high risk for the establishment of non-native species, raising serious ecological concerns. The first of Antarctica's two native flowering plants is Deschampsia antarctica, the Antarctic hairgrass, a remarkably hardy grass species that has adapted to survive freezing temperatures and extremely limited growing seasons. The second is Columbanthus quitinus, the Antarctic pearlwort, a small cushion-forming plant that grows low to the ground to retain warmth and moisture in an environment where both are scarce. The fact that there are only two vascular plants native to Antarctica makes them scientifically extraordinary, as vascular plants are far more complex than mosses or lichens, and their presence here is a testament to the power of adaptation. Both species exist exclusively within the maritime region, where temperatures are just warm enough to support their survival, and researchers have been closely monitoring them for decades on an island off the coast of the peninsula. When scientists first began tracking these plants in the 1960s, they observed slow but consistent growth, persistent year after year, suggesting that even subtle environmental changes were having a real effect. Then, starting around 2009, growth rates of both species accelerated sharply, far exceeding anything recorded in the previous 4 decades, aligning directly with a period of notable temperatures increases in the region. Since the 1960s, the Antarctic hairgrass has increased its total ground coverage by 191%, meaning it now covers nearly 3 times the area it occupied when researchers first began tracking it. The Antarctic pearlwort expanded even more dramatically, with a 2008% increase, more than tripling its presence on the island, an extraordinary rate of growth for a plant in one of the world's most extreme environments. Researchers conducted controlled warming plot experiments on plant seeds, and the results were unambiguous. Seeds germinated successfully under warmed conditions, but failed entirely when left in the natural cold, proving temperature is the key variable driving growth. The broader research on both native plants was conducted over a documented temperature change of 34.16 degrees Fahrenheit, and plant behavior changed so substantially across this range that the connection between warming and growth became undeniable. Both species were also observed migrating away from the island's ice cap and towards smaller, ice-free areas in the soil, showing that the plants are actively tracking the retreat of ice as temperatures rise rather than spreading randomly. Scientists have officially designated the Antarctic Peninsula as a high-risk zone for non-native plant species, as warming temperatures have significantly lowered the barrier that once kept outside species from gathering a foothold. Non-native species tend to be more aggressive growers, as if they establish themselves in Antarctica, they could rapidly outcompete the hairgrass and pearlwort for critical resources like soil space, sunlight, and liquid water. Antarctica's ecosystem is extraordinarily fragile, having developed a near total isolation over thousands of years. An introduction of non-native species could upset this balance in ways that may be impossible to reserve. Ongoing scientific monitoring is absolutely essential so that conservation efforts can be deployed before irreversible damage occurs to one of the last truly untouched ecosystems on Earth. Climate change has fundamentally reshaped Antarctica's capacity to support plant life, and what was once considered one of the least hospitable places for flowering plants is now seeing documented accelerating growth. The warmer conditions of maritime Antarctica have been the critical enabler, giving the continent's two native flowering plants just enough heat and liquid water to survive, spread, and thrive. Of all the factors studied, temperature stands out as the single most important factor, with every line of evidence from controlled experiments to long-term field observations pointing back to warming as the root cause. Perhaps the most powerful takeaway is that no place on Earth is too remote or too extreme to feel the effects of climate change. If Antarctica is being transformed, then nowhere is truly safe from a warming world.